Hello there, and welcome to Thank the Maker, a podcast about heroes, princesses, scoundrels, hokey religions, ancient weapons, and all things Star Wars. I'm Adam Russell.
Hey guys, I'm Ryan Key, and I'm unmuted.
Hey. Hello, my friends. It's Mike Forrester, and we have a show for you about princesses, scoundrels, and child abduction. Oh, what a show. What a show you're about to see. We probably just got flagged for that on YouTube, so I apologize for that.
I'm here to tell you the truth about child labor laws. They're silly and outdated.
You can't say child abduction on YouTube.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
Definitely
true.
not.
All right, let's get right into the discussion about how this is full-blown Nazi Third Reich stuff.
This is probably one of my favorite jokes from role models when they're like, "Ooh, come on, tell us a spooky story," and he's like, "Oh, I've got a scary story, and it's even scarier because it's true. Every day, children are abducted," and he's like, "Okay, that's enough." Oh,
yes.
That's great. Our patrons are here tonight. Our YouTubers are here tonight. Everyone's fired up about 2 incredible episodes of this children's show, which left me at about 5 a.m. going, I don't feel better about anything.
No, the state of the world, not great. The state of our heroes, not great. Children's cartoons making us feel the full weight of impending doom.
Nothing is safe. Nothing is safe.
No, man. I mean, just one thing after another, but CX sniping that trooper out, the gunship pilot, just to crash Hunter?
Right.
Yeah.
It could have very easily, they were in communication. Like, another trooper was like, "Hey, I think they're getting away." And he was like, right. Yes. Rather than be like, "Hey, you should probably crash the ship or at least bring him over here." He was just like, "Let's just get this over with and let's shoot him." Lots to talk about in this episode, with an S. But we have to talk about, most importantly, what the people come here to this YouTube show to see, which is our bingo results. That I think we're gonna get to later, but I think it was fun that we have now, people are invested in these bingo cards, and I think it's fantastic.
I still won the poll. I won the poll.
Ryan is doing. Are you, Ryan? You're our resident sports ball guy. Are you doing okay in March Madness outside of this? It's outside of this bingo extravaganza we have here for Bad Batch.
I didn't do it this year. I had the opportunity to join my brother-in-law's brackets, and I was day of first games, and the app was freaking out on me. I kept getting some weird error message.
Okay.
And I just wasn't able to enter. I don't know if I was too late or what, but anyways, so no, I'm doing great March Madness because I'm not playing.
I don't know what that is. I've never seen that.
Did you have an idea of who was going to win at least at the beginning of this? I think I'm more invested in the women's bracket at this point than I am in the men's.
No, but I haven't been following because basketball is not my sport. But I did watch number 1 North Carolina go down, which was pretty wild. I watched that live.
Sure,
dude. I'm not making a joke right now.
But look,
thank you for clarifying that we're talking about basketball because I did not know.
Yes,
I'm number 1 North Carolina because I won the poll, so I went into the tourney ranked number 1.
Yeah, come on and raise up.
I'm getting
take your
knocked
shirt off.
I'm getting knocked off.
Around your hand, spin it like a helicopter.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm just trying to pick you up, Ryan. You know, the bingo card for season 3 of Bad Batch has been a little rough on you, so I'm just trying to keep you I'm trying to keep you in here. You know what I mean? You know,
dude, if it makes you feel any better, I have 1 hit, one square.
It's a good hit though. It was a solid. It was solid contact. It was like CX hitting that guy right in the chest.
I'm going to get no Monster of the Week. I'm going to get that one.
Here's the thing: people do not agree with our assessment of that episode. Ultimately, we make the rules, so we can mark it however we want.
That is absolutely wrong.
Yeah,
they think it was monsters. I thought last week's was Monster of the Week.
Because when we talk about Monster of the Week, we're talking about that. That's a term. It's a term of endearment to talk to label an episode that is off the main storyline.
Yes,
that doesn't mean an episode with a monster in it. You call it Adventure of the Week. Maybe that's what we should have called it instead of Monster.
I think we did.
It says Monster of the Week on the card. But yes, there was a monster in the episode, but it was still they were fighting the monster on their way to the end of this story arc.
In service of the story.
Plot
they
forward.
weren't on some side hustle for Sid that had nothing to do with cloning. It was fully in the storyline.
Yeah.
So,
it was Mandalorian style. Like, you want the next part of the story? Do this job. So
I'm getting that one, okay?
We'll
love it. Yes.
When we do the season wrap up and we go through and debate all this stuff and explain and declare our own scores as judge, jury, and executioner of our own game, we'll recap and we'll fully clarify what each of these things mean.
That's a good segue.
Judge, jury, and
Because
executioner.
you know who's judge, jury, and executioner is the Empire.
Nailed it.
Let's go ahead and execute some of these kids.
Yeah, so like I said a little bit earlier, the Empire is like more than ever in full Third Reich final solution mode. And the thing that like really makes me think that more than the other times when we've talked about this is how like already we are 1 year out from Order 66, and like everyone all across the galaxy is so brainwashed into thinking, yep, the Jedi are the enemies. We need to turn them in. It's full, like, people living in fear, turning in Jewish people during World War II, fully.
Yeah.
And it's like gross and scary. And
After
in this kids cartoon,
I just finished. I think Ryan. I don't. We haven't talked about it, so I assume that you're not finished, or maybe you did. But I finished Masters of the Air, and then, of course, all geeked up on my historical, series on HBO. I just finished my second, third, fourth, whatever rewatch of Band of Brothers, and
man,
I mean, it's incredible, right? But the second, fourth, fifth time watching it, when the town, I can't remember the town that was in Germany, when the town didn't even realize that there was a work camp to the extent of what was happening, even in their own town, right? And so there's that very harrowing scene where, they go back into town and they go, all these people are going to help us get bodies out of here, right? And I've said this before on this podcast, and I've even our own American history, if the powers that be do not want you to remember something, they will do what they can to make sure that, like, you have to really work for it. And if you look at, even in history, the Weather Underground, which a lot of people don't know, in the 1960s, the SDS, there was literally homegrown college-age terrorism right here in Chicago and all over the country. And a lot of people have never heard about that because, for a very specific reason, they didn't want to give people ideas. But it goes to show you that at the time, there's a ton of people who had no idea. So much history that goes on and information that doesn't get out. So when people go, well, how come after Order 66, like, no one's heard of the Jedi? And you're like, if you control all of the information, you can absolutely make sure that people don't ask too many questions. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So it's an incredible display of our own history that once again is the George Lucas vision of going, I'm just basically retelling stories that have affected me, affected my friends, affected this country, and it's, I think, exactly the way that we were supposed to feel is what we felt from these episodes. So, on that note,
on that rosy, shiny, rainbow-filled, smiley note, as predicted, Cad Bane is the Class 1 bounty hunter. We figured it was him. I mean, top of the list. It could be some others, but he's the guy. Emery Carr promoted to chief scientist, taking Nalisay's place. She wanted that position. That gets hairy for her pretty quickly. She starts to see some things that she has to wrestle with. Empire occupies Pabu. Rest in peace, Havoc Marauder. The Bad Batch essentially defeated at the end of this episode. Omega captured on her way back to Tantus. It's like full-blown The Empire Strikes Back ending level. Ryan, along with the feelings that you're already talking about, you mentioned the score in the chat. Haunting, huh?
Yeah, this is just I talk about this all the time when the last 4 episodes of Clone Wars took just all of a sudden this like dark synthwave turn in the score that really hadn't been there in all in all the seasons of the show up to that point. And it's like the kind of signature sound when things are going poorly for the heroes, or when sad, dark things are happening. And it's like they really bail on the orchestral elements and they just lean into this dark, brooding synth pulse,
Yeah.
When they do.
And the pace just like grinds to a halt too. It's just like droning. Yeah. Like I listened to it today. So I watched, and then I was trying to get a bunch of stuff done in the house. So I tried to put on the score and just get in like work mode, So I put on even season 2, and about 2-3 tracks in, I was like, "Oh, this is not the energy vibe I was looking for." I had to put on A New Hope,
Why am I even cleaning this? Yeah. This is horrible.
Yeah, I was really stoked on the music for both of these episodes, just because I think when they're actually at their best when they do this style, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a unique sound for Star Wars that only they do, and only in these situations. And so it's such a signature thing for animation and for their scores. So yeah, I loved the dark, just sad vibes.
The dark electronic sad.
Yeah,
I'm an emo dad,
Yeah,
but it's also it's their own thing, but it's also unmistakably Star Wars. Maybe because they did it in the final season of the Clone Wars, leaning this direction,
right?
And there are 6 seasons of precedent that Kevin and his adult children kind of transitioned from the Lucas thing into their own version of the Lucas thing.
Right.
So there's nothing about it that I'm listening that makes me think, "Oh, that's not Star Wars." It just is. It's just a different shade, a different tone of Star Wars, and I love it. I love it so much. All right, we've got a handful of things in Stolen Plans that we need to get to, some fun cast stuff. So we're gonna get right into that right now.
What have you done with those plans?
All right. The Bad Batch, Season 3, Episodes 10 and 11. Identity Crisis and Point of No Return debuted today, April 3rd, 2024 on Disney+. Identity Crisis, the Disney Plus description, is Emery confronts the dark secrets behind Hemlock's scientific research.
Oh.
Man.
Does she ever?
They're just keeping kids in cells, man.
Yeah.
Anyways, runtime 25 minutes, directed by Saul Ruiz, written by Amanda Rose Munoz, and and now we're on to Point of No Return. Disney Plus description is The Empire closes in on the batch. Where Matt's back, or Mark is back, whatever the intern.
Mark the intern.
Is. The Empire closes in on the batch. Thanks, Mark.
We did
Runtime 23 minutes, directed by Nate Villanueva, written by Amanda Rose Munoz. Again, also she wrote both of these episodes. Way to go! Good on you, Amanda.
Has she been a reoccurring writer on?
For sure. Yeah. They seem
on
to have a tight
Bad
crew.
Batch as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's obvious having the 2-episode release. It's really because it's supposed to be 1 episode.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think we went over this a little bit earlier this season, how this is the way they're getting around the 20-minute format, the 25-minute format, right? So it's really like she wrote almost an hour-long episode, which is super sick and well done. All right, starring Ivan Sinitsin as SP-32 and Jax, only his 3rd role ever. Olwen M. Whelan as SP-54 and Eva. I wonder if it's Eva or Ava. Eva? It's the only role listed on IMDb.
I can't tell what's the real pronunciation when a Kiwi says it.
Yeah,
Who knows?
It's true. Ava. I think it would be Ava. Yeah, kind of a
make her
hybrid.
An American podcast.
Star Wars voice acting veteran Shelby Young voices both the mother and the Force-sensitive baby in the opening scene. That is very cool. Voicing, like being able to voice a literal baby, and it sounded like a baby creature. Like it wasn't Like we could make stupid noises and sound like a baby, but that sounded legit. Like
she's great.
How did they find a baby?
Following her on Instagram is probably like one of the most entertaining accounts I have, just because I'm like, she does stuff and I can't tell if she's messing with me, like as a viewer. Like she's like, hey, did I say this or did someone else say it? And I'm like,
she'll do like 10 characters in 30 seconds, that kind of stuff. It's
or recently like her talking with her mouth closed just for like an effect, and I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know humans could do that, but here we go.
Adam, is Ailish and Bairn, is that the names of the mom and the baby?
Yes.
Okay, so the force sensitive, the mother is Ailish, and the force sensitive baby is Bairn, as well as the nanny droid. Shelby is most notably the voice of Princess Leia in Forces of Destiny and Lego Star Wars. Very cool. Steve Bloom, the voice of Zeb Aurelius in Rebels. Our boy Zeb. Let's go Rogue Squadron. Voices a Stormtrooper and a Villager. Andy Allo and Liana Hazard. And Miss Gaia. Andy played Nora in the Amazon series Upload. That's a great show. Have you seen it?
No. Is it awesome?
I started it. I didn't finish it, but I started it and it was really fun. I mean, it was a fun, like really funny show.
It is really fun, but dude, the deeper you get into it, it gets so laughably bizarre. Like, I don't want to talk shit on it because it is a really fun show. I only saw
like the first half of the first season, and I thought it was good.
Yeah, same. And then it gets to the point where you're like, oh, you just want to do this with the story and the character, regardless of whether this makes any sense at all, or whether there's any motivation for this or this. Like, oh, this character has this personality now, but it is fun and funny. So it's it's the main what do they call that? The person in the cubicle that comes into the upload and is their assistant. It's her who falls in love with the main dude.
I don't remember.
Nora. Yeah, the main.
Oh,
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's her.
Nora on the show, on the Amazon show.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Back to Star Wars. Daniel Logan returns as Mox, one of the clone kids on Pabu. And have we ever mentioned that Keisha Castle Hughes, the voice of Emery Carr, played Queen Apeliana?
Yeah.
In Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
So that's the second Queen of Naboo after Padme.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's got like the very geisha-looking white makeup with like a white and blue headdress with the beads dangling. Like if you saw the picture, you'd know immediately.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's her.
Huh. That's fun.
I don't know why we never connected that.
I've got to imagine that Daniel Logan he's got one closet in his house with a microphone that just sits there and just says, turn on when Star Wars calls. Because I don't know what else. I don't know what else the dude is doing other than going to cons as Boba Fett from something from 20 years ago. But it's rad that they bring him back to do stuff like this. This cracks me up. But it's like, hey, we brought Daniel Logan, and he's the guy, the kid. You're like,
yeah, it's dope.
I'm available for a call if you need someone. We're around.
Mike also has a phone that says Star Wars is calling.
Star Wars is calling. I need to answer this real quick. I'll be back in a second.
So do you mind? I have to take this one. I have to take this call.
Yep, totally cool. Totally cool. You are important. And then look at this next one. This is neat.
Speaking of bringing people back, Matt Lanter, the voice of Anakin Skywalker in the Clone Wars.
Oh, that
you
old guy?
Know the guy. You might know him. The guy behind the guy. Voices a Stormtrooper and Ollie, the service droid at the port where Fee is refueling her ship. That'll be 1,600 credits. I think she handed him $2,000. I think she handed him $2,000 and was like,
keep the change. Yeah.
It was a nice, easy handoff. And like, what would she have handed him? 1,800 and said, keep the change? No.
Right.
She just gave him 2 G bills,
But what a flex for Matt Lanter. Like, I wonder if he was calling and he's like, guys, I'm like open this week. Like, get me in on something. Come on, man. I'm bored.
And they're like, you can be a Stormtrooper.
Need me to come back and Sky Guy that thing? They're like,
I'm not Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
Dude, it's I would guess it's not so different from like Ryan. You've probably had times where like you visit a friend in the studio or something, and it's like, yo, you want to do some harmonies on this thing real quick, and just not even get credited just for fun, just throw it in there.
Yeah,
I bet that happens all the time with stuff like this.
In music, what is the best example of that you guys can think of?
Bert from The Used screams the last couple lines in Anthem of Our Dying Day on our first album because he was just at Feldman's house, and Dan was like a hardcore dude, pop punk dude until that first album. Hadn't ever screamed until we made him scream on the album.
Nice.
And Feldman's like, I don't know, like a little grosser. Like, Bert, you want to do this? And he just did it, uncredited.
I like details like that.
Natalie Maines.
Sure.
The Chicks now.
Yeah,
they were making an album next door to us, and we said, "Do you want to sing on this song?" And she said, "Sure. Can we make it like a full duet?" And then now there's just a song where I'm just singing with Natalie Maines on a record.
Formerly of Dixie, now just of Chicks.
Absolutely wild. Still to this day, it's just wild that is a thing that happened.
And that's how it happened.
I'm not even 1% a country fan, but I love and respect that group.
Dude, Taking the Long Way, the record that they were making with Rick Rubin next door to us, that record slaps.
Sure.
Really does.
That's funny.
They I was like, what if I just asked if she would sing on it?
Did you knock on the door?
Everyone was like, all you can do is ask. Well, we were all out in like the courtyard at the studio.
Oh, okay. All right.
We had already hung out and had coffee and met them, and there was kind of a common area, And so one day I got up the courage to say,
mustered it up,
and she was like, I would love to, and there we go.
Sick.
I just imagine you like looking through this like small little window and being like, hey, hi, it's me.
Hi.
Next door. Just got a little idea.
It was wild being next to them making that record. We're totally off topic. I'm Stolen Plans. I'm going to finish. We've got one more to go.
This is what people are here for, though.
But Rick Rubin was producing the album. Rick Rubin was there all the time. Just right next door to us. He was just walking around.
Beard hairs everywhere. In your food.
Yeah.
Chad from the Chili Peppers played drums on that record, so he was there every day.
Right.
It was crazy.
Will Ferrell?
Ferrell.
Yeah,
yes.
That's great.
Yes.
Wow. See, this is why people like this podcast, because this is going to be probably
Stolen Plans.
It really, is Stolen Plans, and also it's going to be on Galactic Punk News tomorrow. You know what I mean. So this is going to be good.
Great.
All right, Star Wars. Here we go.
Lastly, in Stolen Plans, Michelle Ang, Gwendolyn Yao, and Seth Green. In addition to their roles as Omega, Nala Se, and Toto 360, they also voiced 3 of the villagers.
Why not?
They're in front of the mic. Yeah.
Seth Green loves that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to hang with that guy.
Oh, to be in a Star War.
Yep.
One day.
All right, let's discuss some stuff. Clone X says, I tracked down the Trandoshan. That's Sid, obviously. Probably.
Do I get a point?
Probably dead, man. Well, I hope we find out, but it's not looking good.
Well, I'm getting that point, baby.
Guy sniped one of his own troopers. She did.
Well, let's bring to Discord to see.
Yeah. Emery, this is by far the most screen time for Emery. This was like an episode. I'm trying to think of another example where, like, I guess the Book of Boba Fett, where it's all the Mandalorian, where it's hardly any Bad Batch, mostly Emery and the stuff in Tantus. The interesting thing about her character and her arc is it's like a condensed version of all the Clone Trooper arcs. Going all the clones, period. Going all the way back to Attack of the Clones, when the Kaminoans were talking about how they're perfectly trained, perfectly obedient from birth, and then here we are, 7 seasons of Clone Wars and 2 seasons of the Bad Batch later. They've all got their own personalities. They're questioning orders. They're building an uprising. So. We don't get it as like definitively here, but it seems apparent that she's got compassion for the children. She gives Omega's homemade Lula to the little girl. She's asking a lot of questions that make it apparent she's uneasy about what's going on. And Cad Bane actually says something awesome that really locks it in to me. She's asking all these questions of him, and he says something like,
"No, not supposed to ask questions like that.
Your questions reveal more than you want them to,
he says,
or something.
Right.
It was something like, you ask your questions like that reveal more than you know.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, like revealing things about what your character and what you think about the situation. And to me, that calls straight back to Din Djarin originally asking the client what's going to happen to the baby. And he's like, you know, that's not the way we do this, right?
Right. Well, he's like, that's so unlike your kind to care, right? Mm-hmm. I think too, I like that we got this follow-up for Emery. I would say this episode, Ryan, back me up on this. Adam, I think you're actually watching it. This was like a Gil episode in Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Gil,
you know what I mean?
I'm in
Gil is
3.
Oh, you're not there yet. Okay. I didn't say anything. But it's kind of one of those episodes where you're seeing how the main bad guy is almost like how these operations are actually happening, like the, you know, kind of how it's made. But we had seen Emery's, I would say if we call it a deviance, or if we would call it a kind of her sidetrackness, her humanity showing when she comes back and obviously tells Omega, hey, you can't have that. You're not supposed to have that, right before Omega gets broken out. She comes back and kind of, you know, she's been showing her empathy the whole time. So I'm glad that we got to see where this followed up, because we also remember that Emery was the one that basically is the reason Nala stays in containment. So there's a lot. Emery has become a very interesting character that I think we were expecting, but maybe not to this level. But it's pretty clear she's crucial.
Crush. It's pronounced Crush.
Crush.
Speaking of, when was she cloned? Like, it's easy to infer that because of her age and being, you know, like a direct clone of Jango Fett, she has to have the accelerated aging thing like the rest of the clones, because there hasn't been enough time.
Right.
You know, Boba was cloned, you know, really early, it seems like, in the process. And he's still a kid. She's a full-blown adult.
Right.
Are you guys, is the math the same for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would say,
because it's never been explicitly said. I was just thinking about it today.
It's certainly murky, and I'm sure if you put together a timeline to the T, it probably wouldn't make I don't know if it would make perfect sense, but I've got the sense that Emery is on the same trajectory as most of the inline clones,
right?
As regards to their rapid aging and their advancement. So, I mean, until we find something else out about it. But there's multiple scientists besides her, which I think is interesting. So, like, at what point did they introduce them all at once, or where is the rest of them? It's very, because when you look up and you see that observation deck, like there's a ton of people up in there, right? And I'm like, ooh, this, you know, this is interesting. But we'll get into that.
It's like it gives you the vibe of like an operation theater at like the turn of the century, when surgeons were like just experimenting on them. Right. What happens if I cut this open, or stick this into that?
Organ, we need a new one in here, because that didn't work.
Was just watching, you know.
Right.
So weird.
And two, like, I also got, I don't know if anyone watched the latest Stranger Things, but I certainly got, 11 and Papa and
yes.
Yeah, I got a lot of that vibe, and we've seen that before too. It almost has the Apple TV, the what's that amazing show that everyone wigged out about?
Which one?
Where you get Ben Stiller's with Adam.
Severance.
I got some vibes from that, of like where you weren't supposed to be.
What a show.
Know? Yeah, exactly. Coming back, season 2.
There definitely is that like 11 and Papa vibe with Hemlock. Like Emery's just been brainwashed her whole life, and it's finally starting to unravel.
Right. Mm-hmm. I like it.
Oh man, it's good. It's good. All right, let's talk about the real stuff. Not that stuff isn't real, but and the Omega M count question. Hemlock gives Emery a full exposition dump, and it's done well enough. Like, okay, now that this is your job title, I'm bringing you in. You're going to come in the vault. I need to bring you up to speed. Here's the quote. He lays it out. He says, as you know, M count cannot be directly replicated from the source. However, Nala Se knew of another way, which is why she aided in Omega's escape. The young clone's blood was the only binder proven to be compatible with their DNA to recreate their M count levels, and why Omega must be found. So there it is, straight up. That it doesn't give us clarity whether or not she has force sensitivity, but we know that it's her. It's all the samples as they're spinning in that clock thing, they're dropping in blood, drops of blood from the kids, the specimens in holding. It's not Palpatine's blood.
Right.
So do you think that you think there was a powwow with JJ? It was like, so what were you thinking?
Dude,
or
more on this later.
Or do you think it really was just
somehow,
we don't know,
the M count has returned, and
this is all being written to explain that moment away? That's just, it's so crazy to think about, because
dude, there's a thing in the den later that gets directly into this, and we should talk, and we'll be speaking in all caps. I'll just say that.
I cannot wait to hear about it.
But I think that for us to know that, we see this all the way going back to Lucas's thing, right? That Qui-Gon quite literally pricks Anakin and does a test and then gets a reading, right? So this whole, like, the blood being this indicator that's, that's very real world in that regard. I mean, we've seen this in the prequels, right? So this was long before J.J. Abrams and everyone getting, confused as to where this concept came from. This is all the way from Big George himself. So I think the clarity on it was interesting, and I think it's kind of one of those things where we've never thought too hard about until finally something brings us to think this macro about how these things come about. But when we think about it, it's like, how interested are they? Again, Ryan, to your point, we're going to get into it later, but it's like, was this a sequel inspiration, or was this actually a prequel inspiration of how we came to be with this? So it's interesting regardless. But obviously the Jedi knowing that the midichlorian count can be available through blood is a long-standing Star Wars thing at this point. So I think we're on it.
I love when Cad Bane checks the blood of the little cat baby, reads the thing and goes, "That'll do."
That'll do. Cad Bane also, let me just note this. When he gets his toothpick, there is a mechanical sound. So if you're wondering if automatic toothpick dispensers are canon, congratulations. That should have been on my bingo card, because that would have been a point for me. But turns out you can shop a shopper image if you want, even in space.
I mean, why get one out manually when you can have it dispensed mechanically? You know what I mean?
You pull it out and just chew on it. Toto, get your chassis up here.
Star Wars tech is just the stuff that really matters.
Yeah,
it's
There's
true.
no internet, but
I want to watch him. I want to watch him take
dispensers.
I want to watch him take his gross hands and put it under an automatic soap dispenser, like, just to let people know these things can exist. We have repulsor lifts. Why can't we have an automatic toothpick dispenser? We're good.
Dude, you know what it's like? It's like the stuff you find in electronic shops in Japan.
Yeah,
stuff
sure.
That, like, as a kid, you're like, wouldn't it be sick if this existed? Turns out it does in Japan already. Some weird little thing has been made. That
Turns out slick shoes do exist.
No, it doesn't really solve a problem. That wasn't really that big of an issue, but in case you were one of those people, absolutely.
So I feel like it's still a 50-50 shot whether or not Omega's force sensitive. I mean, there's the last shot of the episode. Yes. She's meditating in the Clone X's ship.
But then her eyes open.
Yeah. And it's like, is she just meditating because Gunji taught her and she's just trying to, practice mindfulness? Or is she trying? Like, is she really trying based on her experience with Ventress?
I read it as she was doing it because Gunji taught her, and then something clicked. She made a connection, or she sensed something, and that threw her out of it.
There's been an awakening.
Darth Vader's eyes open. He's in the bacta tank.
Yeah.
Just like an Obi-Wan.
It scared her out of the meditation.
Sure.
Oh,
I like that.
That's what I took from that scene.
Sick.
That she actually did finally link up with the Force.
God, I hope. I know it's so on the nose, but I want it so bad. I know you do too.
Yeah,
we
on.
want to give it to us.
All of a sudden on Tatooine, we heard Kenobi.
Yeah.
This whole this whole storyline is on the nose to explain somehow Palpatine returned, and we're here for it. So just give us what we want.
They gave us three seasons of animated Star Wars just because of that line. They were like, "We heard you."
It's not
loud
like
and
she's
clear.
gonna just. It's not like she's gonna, as we've seen in certain future films, just pick up a lightsaber and rip out of nowhere. I don't think we're gonna get that. I just think there might be a moment before this is over where she realizes that she's one with the Force.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, flows through everything. All right. Who or what is in the big mysterious chamber at the center of the lab?
Oh.
We had one other shot when we first saw this lab. Same kind of thing. Opens, light hits Hemlock's face. There is something interesting here.
Okay, here we go. Let's get into it.
You know what? We'll show this in the den.
Oh,
because
okay.
you need to,
Okay.
Mike. You and I are. You want to do it now, or you want to do it in the den? We've got.
Bring it up.
screenshots.
We're talking about it. Let's bring it up. This is what
All right.
This is what YouTube and this is what the Discord. This is what the patrons want to see. They want to see these class presentations here. Uh-oh.
Look what I did. Look what I did.
Okay,
All right.
here we go.
So on Hemlock's desk, on his
Yes.
data pad, this is the first one he's looking at. It looks like the Clone X helmet in the mask. It looks pretty
Agreed.
close, right?
Yeah, the earpieces look like the circles that light up, which I
Mhm.
love. It's such a sick tool they use to identify them in the dark or wherever, in any scene. You're like, oh, that's Clone X right there.
It's got that cat-like mouth, kind of almost Black Panther style.
Yep.
But
Which
then
is
the
actually
next,
a scout trooper respirator.
yeah,
Very
there you
similar.
go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the next one, so he taps a button to go to the nenext slide,
Oh,
and
boy.
look at this thing.
Oh boy, here we go.
It's got this helmet that's almost like it has these earpieces that are almost like Hu Yang's helmet a little bit,
Uh-huh.
and the body is almost Iron Man-esque. It's bigger. It's a little more robust.
That is definitely a Decepticon.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of parallels being drawn to Phase 1 Dark Trooper,
Yes.
which I think that's what the internet has, that's currently in favor. And as you look more at it, there's certainly, and I think mainly because of the sides of the Phase 1 Dark Trooper had almost these like, they were like their respirators, or they had, breathers on the side. What's interesting about this is we can't make out any Arbesh in it, so it doesn't have any. It's like I can't see what exactly is on the side there, but I think they did it for a very specific reason and not include anything legible because of nerds
Right.
like us. But what's interesting about this too, over on
We'll
the
ruin it
side
for
here,
everyone.
you're exactly right, is that this part, this looks like the Amban pulse rifle.
Yeah, to the right of it. So on the other slide, on the right, there's just like the almost like Da Vinci style
schematics, yeah.
arms down. This one has a separate, for everyone listening, has a separate thing to the right. What looks like a piece of a weapon that is the tip of Mike. Go ahead.
Woo, 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 woo. What's interesting about this, so this kind of feeds further into our, I don't want to speculate, but I think if there's enough here for us to look at it, is that, we know that Moff Gideon was incredibly inspired and incredibly curious about Mandalorian culture. We know that for him to be able to harvest Beskar, for him to understand all of the things that made Mandalorians such fierce warriors, and it being obviously a huge part. Moff Gideon knows that Grogu is being protected by Din Djarin. They spar in the first episode, and I'm sorry, they spar in the first season. And what's most interesting about that, I think, is that we've gotten to that point where we could definitely introduce Moff Gideon at this point.
Yeah.
And possibly see why they are so inspired. We haven't seen a lot of Mandalorian representation in this series so far, and we know that that's obviously an important point, considering the last time that we saw live action cloning was in season 2 of The Mandalorian, in the Remnant Imperial Outpost. So
You're just trying to hit bingo card spots in your head
Let's
right
do
now.
it. Let's do
Dude,
it.
look at this
You're
weapon on the
manifesting.
right, though. That's the tip of the Ambin rifle.
Yep.
Almost like a tuning fork type thing.
Right.
But it's just a staff handle. It's cut off a little bit. The bottom of it's cut off in the shot, but it looks like it's. I mean, it looks like the same thing. Like they don't do this by accident. They don't just draw something and go, "That looks cool."
Right.
They
put that there for a reason.
Yeah. I'm about
Most interesting.
So Moff Gideon says the first generation was flawed because it had a human in it. The human wasn't enough. They did the droids. Or did he say the other way? They did the droid version, and the downfall was that there wasn't someone in it, and the missing ingredient was him.
Right.
Either way, he's talking about iteration.
The missing ingredient is a force-sensitive being in the suit.
Yeah.
Right. Who can power the suit, have the power to be able to tap into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that has like so many levels because the suit could be more powerful, because it could be more heavy, because you would be able to manipulate the weight of it with the force, or just you'd be like an indestructible warrior that could.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's scary stuff to think about.
Yeah.
Getting in the wrong hands,
Iron Man style. All right. I'm happy about that. I like that that's there. Let's move on.
Mike, have you seen the thing, speaking of Iron Man, where it talks about, like, it's like a meme on the internet where it says, my kid can't tie their shoes or clean up their dishes or put their toys away or whatever, but then it goes the second they get a tablet, and it cuts to Robert Downey Jr. like
with Jarvis
throwing all the Jarvis stuff all over the room, and then the last shot is him when he goes and like pushes back from his chair.
It's
so
true.
Good.
It's true. My kid is a technological wizard. Yet if I was like, "Hey, could you zip up your coat?" She's like, "Are you sure? How am I supposed to do that?" I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." But she can navigate the entire Netflix catalog, and that's good.
She goes.
I don't know what that is. I've never seen that.
Yeah. That's exactly correct.
For over 1,000 generations.
It is the dark saber.
Run, oh gosh.
It's a Calicori.
A Sith wayfinder.
Dark science. Cloning. Secrets only the Sith knew.
The Den of Antiquities. It's good. It's deep today. We got 2 episodes worth of Den of Antiquities, and I think this is an important part for us to talk about. We're not speculating, but there's definitely enough in here that we should comment on. But let's first get into it. The cat marsupial type of species of the force-sensitive toddler in the opening scene of the episode 11, which was both voiced by Shelby Young, has yet to be named, but was previously seen in Solo, a Star Wars story, when they are I think it's in the Smugglers, the betting den, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, which was a treasure trove of different species done incredibly well. The baby's name is Barn, which is Ryan from Screen Crush claims is Scottish for baby. Can't verify that. We don't know that for sure. But you know what? I like it. Let's just say, got a shout out to Screen Crush. Let's just say
I can find out. I have a good Scottish friend.
Let's follow up.
I'll find out. We'll follow up next week.
Let's follow up. Let's figure it out.
Do it.
The Force-sensitive children in Mount Tantus wear the same jumpsuits as the adult prisoners there. So
dark.
This is somewhere out there. There's a seamstress that's like, you need it in what size? But they don't ask because the Empire pays. Force-sensitive green screen Mirrorland boy from Mount Tantus is named Jax, which reminds me of Jackson, the Green Rabbit character in the 1977 Marvel Comics series. Star Wars number 8, which George Lucas hated, by the way, and motivated him to insist on creative control of all new EU material from then on. And if you're curious as to what Jackson is actually just like, well, first of all, they made a black series of him, but think of a X-Wing pilot. But if the X-Wing pilot was in a red jumpsuit and also was an Easter Bunny.
Straight up Bugs Bunny.
Straight up,
Bugs
it's
Bunny.
a straight up Bugs Bunny. There is nothing that makes sense about it. But there is one cosplayer that does do a Jackson, and that's fantastic when you see him at Celebration. So George Lucas, in typical fashion, I'm too busy to do something. Someone else takes it, and then he goes, nope, not like that. Not like that. Tarkin's criticism. What'd you say, Ryan?
I get it.
Yeah. I actually think I have one of the comics here. Sorry, I got a little hot on the mic.
Creative people, I mean, not me. I would never. But creative people like to do that. What you just said.
Next week, I will unveil my new Yellow Card song. You're going to love it. Tarkin's criticism of Hemlock's use of funds is a pattern. He did the same to Krennic with Project Stardust, which is the Death Star, in Rogue One. And there was also conflict over clones versus conscripted soldiers in Season 1 of The Bad Batch. So Tarkin, the interesting part about this is if Tarkin, I mean, I'm sure not a lot of people tell Grand Moff Tarkin it's classified, which honestly is a huge flex on Hemlock's side,
flex, dude.
right? Because you can see him go, okay, that's fine. I'm a military man myself. I understand. I might be, if you're going to use that word, I have to respect it. But he's also like, I could defund you and figure out exactly what you've been doing here, which is also a very Tarkin move. But I think that's kind of goes to show you that Tarkin is the tax man in many ways.
What Hemlock dropped the ball on, perfect opportunity. He should have said, that's classified. I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
Nice.
Dude, I mean, I've been thinking it, and I knew you were going to say it, so I let it happen, and I'm glad I did.
Right. Well, we were...
Thank the maker. A Top Gun podcast.
Well, we were...
It's like this, Mike.
We were inverted.
Yeah, we were inverted. Yeah.
There you go.
I got a great Polaroid of it.
Yeah. Fee uses a big vacuum hose to lift her gonk droid into the ship, and this calls way back to when the Jawas lifted R2 into the sandcrawler on A New Hope. So this vacuum...
Sick gonk droid, too.
Gonky!
It's like a new vibe. Have we
it
seen
is
a
cool.
gonk droid like that before?
The cylinder.
Kind of like
no, I think
cylinder.
Yeah.
Well, I think Clink was probably the other one that was similar, which we do love ourselves. Clink the droid for sure.
But I did notice the Jawa vacuum, the droid vacuum hose was cool.
Yep. So that's a good little throwback right there. The Venator class Star Destroyer over Pabu is reminiscent of the classic Star Destroyer. So I think on the bingo card we're saying we're getting closer and closer to seeing that development of full visual identity into the Empire.
Oh,
but
sorry, continue. But I didn't finish typing this whole thing here.
Oh,
I was going to say reminiscent of the Star Destroyer over Jeddah City.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say
just
also
like hovering there.
Yeah, and the silhouette of it coming out from the Maw. In Solo, which was epic.
They stripped all the color, right, at this point from
great movie. Solo, great movie.
Right.
Yeah.
We should do a live watch with everyone.
Yes,
they don't have the red markings anymore, at least from what I've seen when they show them. So I think that's the direction we're heading. Palpatine has been hunting Force-sensitive children for experimentation for a very, very long time. In the Clone Wars Season 2, Episode 3, Children of the Force, he hires Cad Bane to capture children and tells him, I need test subjects. So this episode aired in 2009.
Say that again.
Dude.
Palpatine says, I need test subjects.
He's had this in his brain for so long.
And Cad Bane...
2009.
Right. In 2009. 2009. What were you guys doing in 2009?
That was a dark year for me, bro. I was struggling. I was on the struggle bus.
We were making an album that wasn't good. That's what my band was doing.
We were not a band, and I didn't know what I was gonna do with my life, and I had, it was a weird time, man. But
think about this. Even at these rough times you guys are describing, I was graduating from college, and once I got my student loans, once I got my student loans, I realized I was also in a dark place, because I probably wouldn't have done that again. But we know that even despite us all being in a dark place in 2009. We still were not abducting children, and let's face it.
So now it's like, did Dave Filoni go into the room with Abrams and and Lucas or whoever at the really the big story powwow and go, guys, I don't know if you know this or not, but I've been working on a thing to bring Palpatine back to life since 2009, and were they all like, okay, tell us more? Yes. I mean, obviously Lucas knew. He was involved in all of that back then.
It was the second season. It was still under his creative control.
Yeah.
Before Disney, let it be known, before Disney, All caps.
Palpatine was returning before Disney.
Yes.
But we're Disney shills. Yeah, I get it. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Suck on that one, sequel haters.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, dude, that's huge. That's huge
incredible
information. And we have talked about this all the time. Not as much lately, but I think there's a lot of old episodes of this podcast, especially when we were going through the films, and we talk about execution. And it's like, you agree or disagree with the execution of this plot line, but the fact that we're uncovering that, or not uncovering, because it's there. You can watch season 2, episode 3 of the Clone Wars. It's always been there to watch, but now we're connecting the dots of Palpatine's plan that was in Dave Filoni's mind, and maybe also somewhat George Lucas's mind. I mean, who knows? Who raised their hand first and said, "Well, what about this?" But either way, that Palpatine going down the shaft in Jedi was not his end, and that was always to be. So if you don't like the execution, that's okay. That's like an album with songs on it. You don't like every song, like, that's fine. But to just write it off because there was no plan, or they didn't give you what you wanted as a fan. It's just, this is the kind of stuff that makes that so ridiculous to me, because not every fan is going to take the time to decipher this stuff. That's what we're here for. And I just think this is an amazing a wire we've connected that is really important.
I mean, if you go all the way back to the Phantom Menace, I mean, we'll watch your career with great interest. Like, he knows.
Yeah.
Like, if he's been on the hunt for an apprentice or something else, you know what I mean? Like,
the core, like, at least maybe not of the Sith as a whole. And I would need to read every novel and every comic and everything ever written to really write a thesis on this. But Palpatine, I can say with confidence, his sole mission is cheating death. That's the story he wants to tell. That's clearly watching your career, watching your young career, because I need someone to follow me, be my apprentice, possibly
the tragedy of
accept
Darth.
my blood to let me live on forever. I don't know. I'm just like, this has always been right in front of our faces. And so the one line by Poe Dameron that upset everyone so much, again, that's just execution.
Right.
Right. And it's just, man, this is huge.
But somehow Star Wars fans forgot about Star Wars.
Imagine that.
Oh my gosh. Imagine that. So yeah, it's a good Den of Antiquities this week. Yeah, cool. Man, that's great. Let's go to some of are we going to favorites? We're doing this, or what are you thinking?
I love you.
I
know. Smooth.
It's called broadcast professionalism. Look it up. All right. Since Nick's not here, we didn't mention Nick is on tour right now. He did
go see Bayside.
Go see Bayside on tour around the United
Kicking
States.
It off.
He did send a video with his immediate reaction and his "I love you, I know," but something about the format he sent, the way he exported it, it will not upload into this StreamYard thing I'm using. So
patrons get it.
Computer.
Oh, they're in the computer.
They're in the computer, but not in the way we want them.
Are patrons getting that then?
Patrons, I'll see if I can make it work, and
I like it,
and just post it in there or something.
I like it.
But speaking of patrons, let's hear from them about their favorites before we give ours. So Physics Buddy Joe said, I loved the following exchange. Emery says, I don't have that kind of power. And Nalase says, don't you?
Oh, Nalase is like, she's dying on the vine. Like, every time she talks, I'm like, we need to get her some water.
I don't know the word, but there was one word that the S at the end of the word was so far detached from the word itself.
Yes.
I noticed it,
She needs help.
I know that's what Kaminoans look like, but it's just giving like E.T. on his deathbed,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Slow motion, pale as hell.
Just white, just pale white skin in the case with the little glass window.
You're killing him.
You're killing him.
Yeah, that was a brutal, like, just calling out of Emery, like, oh, you don't have that kind of power? And that's funny because you just took my job, and you can kind of do whatever you want if you really want to. Yeah, that was good. Also, Omega saying to Crosshair, "Is that Hunter?" And Crosshair just goes, "Uh-huh." Yeah. It was good. Good timing, good delivery. Let's see. Physics buddy Joe also says Omega tells Crosshair to focus on the bigger mission. I'm just a small part. Full role reversal. Like, so that scene right there to me where, in a way, the student becomes the master.
Right.
She's showing her maturity. Like she says, she calls him little brother in previous episodes. She's older. She's learned so much from them. She's learned so much from them, and she's so capable. He's come so far as a character. He's got this emotional attachment to her, and she just basically flips everything they've ever said to her onto him in that moment, and he can't. It's unassailable. He can't say anything, and she goes. It's great.
Yep.
TK Ryan says Crosshair missing the pivotal shot to track Omega. What sacrifice does he make to save her? What's it going to come down to?
Oh boy.
What a shot. Just blue. Just doesn't make it. Yeah, it doesn't even hit the backboard. Let's see. Holden McGroin. Great screen name. Seeing the Republic ships and still fear when they used to inspire hope is pretty rad. That is pretty sick. Then when the gunships show up, it used to be like, here comes the cavalry, and now it's like,
it's
run
and hide.
Yeah.
And
All
also,
that
I think
occupation is brutal, man.
I think too, though, that this episode marks the last of any of the trailer footage we've seen.
Is there not one more shot? I'm gonna have to go back and look too, but I feel like there was a shot from the overhead view firing on the island coming down.
Okay.
In the trailer.
Very possible, or they cut it. But that big scene of like all the people running from the clone troopers in formation, I was like, when's that going to happen? So I think, I don't know. I think we're very close to dark now at this point.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. Exciting.
Mike, what was your favorite quote or scene or moment?
My favorite, I do have a sucker for
each
every
child.
moment.
If they're good, they'll get the sucker.
They get the sucker.
If they're really good, they'll get ice cream later.
Okay. It does what it's told. There's I think in this episode, with an S, it was so underrepresentative of the Bad Batch, which is interesting. But Crosshair failing yet again to first of all, like CX, we didn't really get to talk about CX, but man, I'm like, this guy sounds like Crosshair. He shoots like Crosshair. This is wild to me because I was kind of hoping on a Cody train, but now I'm like, are we Crosshair clones or what's going on here? But, he sounds more like Crosshair than he's ever done. And then making that crucial shot in a brutalistic way. He just literally seems like the mirror of Crosshair at this point. And for Crosshair to miss this shot, which I think TK Ryan said was his favorite moment, there is something. I think the feeling of this made me feel like it was Empire Strikes Back. That it ended with, you knew that there was supposed to be hope, but like you were kind of looking for it, and I think it just had that very somber feeling of going, man, Omega seems like she knew this was her destiny. It's almost like Luke saying, I have to go find Vader. I can't run from this. It's very good. It made me feel a lot of things for sure. It felt like old Star Wars in a lot of ways. So I would say probably that moment of knowing that Omega did not get saved, that the plan did not work, I think is going to be incredibly crucial for Crosshair's growth and his role of
hitting my bingo card when he sacrifices himself for her.
Oh, yes, that's probably it. And also, yet again, Star Wars, if you like buying toys, Star Wars is like, we don't care. We're glad that you bought the toy. If you have a Havoc Marauder sitting on your shelf, you bought the Lego, go ahead, put it right next to the Razor Crest and just smash it. Destroy it. It's gone.
Throw it off the balcony.
Throw it off the balcony. It's gone. So, Save it for the memory bank. Somehow the Havoc Marauder is not returned.
Ryan, how about you?
Definitely the moment where Omega opened her eyes.
Final shot.
Meditating or whatever that,
Yeah.
Just that moment of mindfulness. I fully felt, whether I'm right or wrong, what I felt in that moment was a connection to the Force for the first time.
Dig that.
I hope so.
And I like the Force.
You like the Force too?
Yeah.
Sick. So. I'm with physics buddy Joe. The moment where, like we talked about a second ago, where Omega does the full role reversal with Crosshair is not just special because Crosshair gets emotional and he has this panic moment of, no, you can't do that. You can't leave. Which reminds me of one of the most intense, ugly, cry-inducing scenes I've ever witnessed in my life on television, which was when Jack told Hurley to go and Hurley said, you can't just die. Oh my God. Brutal. It made me think of that. Like the look on his little animated face was so intense. So there's that, but also just the confidence that Omega has, even though she's obviously scared. It's like you're saying, Mike, it's her destiny. It is. Dude, it's the only way. It's so
Jedi.
good.
It's Jedi shit.
Yeah, man.
Like, I'm going to go sacrifice myself for the greater good.
Mm.
She's feeling it, dude. I'm telling you, she's feeling the Force. It's bubbling up in there.
Yep.
That's why her blood can handle the M count. It's not confirmed yet that she just can handle the M count. Like, there still could be more.
But
yeah,
there was that part where Crosshair is like, when he's like, oh, she goes, oh, put a tracker on me, and he's like, no, they'll find that. And then the first thing that happened, set a tracker on the ship. So I thought that they were gonna kind of pull the old put a tracker on me so that they find it, and then think, okay, cool, now it's like hidden in her shoe or something like that,
Right. Yeah.
And when they didn't find, there was no other tracker, and then when he makes the shot and it misses, I was like, oh,
strike two.
See you later. Yep. So I assumed that maybe we'd see Ventress's ship following the CX, but we didn't. So
no, man. It's just what the cool part is, and I was going to mention this earlier. It sets it up for a couple things. One, they have to go to Tantus. Everyone has to go to Tantus. So to wrap this thing up, the Batch and Echo and Rex's clones and all of it, they have to make it there to rescue her, right? She's not going to break out again. They're not going to just play that thing over again. So there, she's for sure going to meet those Force-sensitive kids. There's no way that's not happening.
Sure.
So even if Omega doesn't use the Force, they're going to.
Right.
So all caps, yes. Yes, yes. We're going to get that. And then they're going to liberate as many clones as possible. Maybe a bunch of them die, but regardless, the mission is to destroy that place.
Right.
And that leads us straight into this huge setback for Project Necromancer, which has to relocate somewhere else, and that somewhere else is Exegol.
Nice. And then it rips open a time-space continuum, and one of them turns into Vecna, and it all happens. It is Star Wars
running the whole town. He's got a casino.
Right.
Yeah. Marty's mom has fake boobs. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I never knew that we had connected until this podcast. Amazing.
2 mid-flies with the same gun. That's how it ends.
Yeah, I love that.
The end.
I love everything
forever.
about
Star Wars.
Yep.
No credits music.
No credits.
And I get that bingo card.
Yep. There it is.
Yeah, that's true. Nice one.
I don't know. I got to say, this week probably this would have been the one.
Yeah, I agree.
Unless it's the finale, dude.
Yeah. Unless it's just dark. Everybody's dead.
I hear a collective this sound from the Kiners right now, like
crack of the knuckles.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Hold my beer.
Yep.
Maybe, dude. I mean, there's nothing that it would not surprise me if they went ahead and ran this thing into the ground, and not in a bad way. I mean, like just no, like if this series ended in an Empire Strikes Back-esque way, because there's more to this story that we know is coming later.
Yeah.
So there's no need for this to wrap up with some happy ending. Like it just doesn't.
Right.
And the whole style of this show, it's dark and gritty, and their armor is dark and gritty, and now we're really in the depths of how evil the Empire truly is. Are you even going to feel good if there is like a happy Pabu? We got our boats back and everybody's happy. You know, like that's not going to feel right.
No, it can't. It can't.
Right. Right. So it's gonna end dark, and then they're gonna go. Just a reminder, it's the 10-year anniversary of Star Wars Rebels. So go ahead and watch it all over again, because that's where this show picks up. Yeah, sure.
I'm hoping there's going to be another series, and it's going to be called Omega, and it's going to be about her, or we get a series about the Path, or there's like a Clone Rebellion series, and it follows Rex and crew and whatever Bad Batch member survives, if any, or Rex and Omega to get, like, who knows? Like,
well, official Star Wars does say, I know we have to wrap up, but official Star Wars does say Ventress's story will be told.
Yep, there you go.
So it's kind of like, you know, I think the voice actor equally said, I'm just getting going. I'm back. Like, we're doing all this. So like there is more happening with Ventress specifically, whether it's an audiobook or something, which I don't think it's going to be. I get the idea that it's definitely going to be.
For sure. I would just say that we the one thing we have going for us when we speculate here is that we know how this chapter ends, and it doesn't end well. So it's not there isn't a successful clone uprising. There isn't some young Omega Force user that saves the day. The Empire wins here in this chapter of the story. And so it's like, I mean, I love that because I want to see this side of the story. It's Star Wars as a kid was the good guys win all the time. Even Empire Strikes Back. I mean, you know, at 5 years old when I was watching that, I still was just like, yay, Luke Skywalker. You know what I mean? Yeah. But overall, it's the heroes are the heroes. And in this part of the story, the heroes don't win. It's just like, we already know the ending, so it's not possible for the heroes to win here.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating to think about how they're going to tell these stories in the spirit of Star Wars, where the good guys win, you know?
The path. Mm-hmm. Where was Grogu being hidden for 50 years?
Mm-hmm. We do know that one of those clones ends up on Dayu asking for money in his helmet. Just one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
also, speaking of one of those clones that ended up somewhere, again, Ryan from Screen Crush has a shaky, loose, maybe theory that Omega is Rey's mom.
Oh, jeez.
The timeline does line up. And if Rey's clone dad didn't have the midichlorians, but he had the DNA, and then Omega's
what?
Or you know what I'm saying? Omega's
I
mom.
I can't dismiss it. I can't dismiss it. Maybe let's talk about it. This sounds interesting. Next week's pod. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe we'll talk about it on the after show thing. Speaking of the after show things, we are wrapping up. For patrons in the patron feed, we're doing a question from the Star Wars Conversation Chat Pack by Kelly Knox. Boba Fett hires Jabba the Hutt's remaining Gamorrean guards when he becomes Tatooine's new daimyo. Would you have done the same? Why or why not?
Oh, interesting.
We'll talk about that in the after show segment for patrons.
Let's do it.
If you want to hear that, patreon.com/ThinkToMakerPod. At any tier of patronage, even the $5 citizen tier, you can hear the ad-free extended version via Patreon. So do that if you like our show and you want to support us and you want to help us pay bills and continue making this. We appreciate you so much, patrons, for real. Not just pandering. Truly, it makes the thing happen.
Truly.
Dudes, this was a good one. Thanks for hanging.
Can't wait to see where this is going.
Yep. It's going to be big. It's going to be heavy. Nick, I don't think Nick's going to be back before. No, he is. The finale will be when he's back, right?
I love it. We're getting the band back together right before the finale.
We're doing it.
He just texted and said he misses us dearly.
Yep, he's very upset.
Right.
So we're going to go cry about it, but we're also going to do the after show segment for patrons. And until next week, may the Force be with you. If you enjoy Thank the Maker, you can support us by following and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Or you can support us directly at patreon.com/thankthemakerpod, where you can get access to our Discord server, exclusive content, exclusive merch, our recording live stream, and more. Our patrons quite literally make Thank the Maker possible.